I think we're going to get started. We're going to get started right now. Welcome to our Thrive Talk called Aging Fearlessly. My name is Ann Osherwitz, and I am new to the Thrive Board, and I am excited to welcome you all here for this terrific conversation that we're going to have, this terrific talk about aging fearlessly. Julie Bach is our speaker, and Julie is a gerontology coordinator and associate professor in the School of Social Work at Dominican University. She holds 2 masters, one from the University of Illinois Circle and one from University of Southern California, correct? And a PhD in social work from the University of Illinois Circle.
Nobody else in my family got degrees. I got them all.
Yeah, okay.
Took care of my siblings.
Julie volunteers with Alzheimer's associations, where she has led a support group for family and friends caring for loved ones with memory issues. She has been leading the support group for over 35 years. So I don't think we can find anyone more qualified. Well, I think we're all very excited to hear what you have to say, since we're all going to be aging. So welcome.
Thank you so much. So I'm not going to use the microphone because I tend to walk, and I was blessed with a very loud voice. My whole family is loud, which has worked well as we've all aged. So, but if you can't hear me or would prefer I use the microphone, I will. But if you're okay, we can try it without a microphone. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, I see someone in the back going thumbs up, thank you. Okay, so when you do teaching, you don't know how to do a talk without PowerPoints. So, aging fearlessly, you don't know how long I have struggled with what to talk about, and I'll tell you why in a second. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to look at what we fear. Why do we fear aging, and what is aging? We're going to look at changes that really happen with age. I mean, there is a fact that we change with age. We're going to look at ageism. This is probably one of the biggest reasons why we fear aging, because society tells us that there's nothing worse than being over 35. And if you look at the people getting plastic surgery, Botox today, you can see why we have gotten, I thought by now, because I started in gerontology in 1977. I was young then, and I thought that what would happen is that women would embrace what men did back in the 70s, which was to embrace their aging. And instead, men now are dyeing their hair. So society really is doing us in with this aging thing not being a good thing. And then we're going to talk about risk and control, because I think that's another thing that happens about aging, okay? And I want to have discussion. I want to hear from all of you about your thoughts. So this was a picture of me probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, when I was younger. And you know what? It's okay that I don't look like that anymore, okay? It's okay that I have more wrinkles. It is okay, and I've studied gerontology ever since I was 25. When I used to work with older adults, they would say, "Oh, how can you know anything about working with older adults? You're so young." And then I realized after a while, nobody was saying that anymore. I thought, oh, I'm entering a different era of my life. And I have many friends who are gerontologists. And we all say, you can read all about getting older. But I just turned 69. It's a whole different ballgame when you're doing it, right? And so I'm going in today's presentation talk about approaching aging fearlessly, not only from what the literature and the books say, but what I'm looking at and what my peers and the people I know are looking at, and who we can be for the young people today. I think we need to lead them that aging is dang good much of the time, right? So we're going to age fearlessly. So one of the things about getting older is we have these role models that are either spectacular, right? They're in their 90s, they're in their 80s, they look phenomenal, They're doing all these things, and we say that's what it means to get older. But then we also know there are groups of people who are in their 70s and 80s who have a lot of struggles. And some of it isn't due to anything they've done. Some of it is done to the systems that people have to endure. So we want to look at the strengths of getting older, but we also want to accept the challenges. So at Dominican, we just had Dolores Huerta talk. I don't know if any of you know who Dolores Huerta is. She worked with Cesar Chavez in the labor movement on the West Coast. She's 92 years old, and the woman is phenomenal. She had everybody at the end of the talk up with their hands saying, "Yes, we can, si se puede." I mean, she was just full of energy. But not everybody at 92 can be that way, but we can all try to be. So we're looking at the fact that people age differently, but and the media is getting better. We can actually see some movies today that show older adults who don't have memory problems, are sexual beings, and who are alive, right? And that is a good thing. Sometimes a little exaggerated. I saw 80 for Brady. Anybody see 80 for Brady? Gotta love those women. But there were parts of it that you were like, yeah, right. But there were parts of it that I thought were very inspiring. And 10 years ago, when I used to have my students look at movies, I couldn't find any movies that showed really good, positive aging. So finally, people are getting these film directors, and the media is understanding that showing older adults, there's a market of us, right? We'll go out and look at these movies. So who are our role models? Who do we look to on what aging is about? Because that's really important. So aging fearlessly and embracing who we are now. Whether you're middle-aged, young, as we call it, or older, we are all aging. You're absolutely right. We start aging the moment we're born. Yes?
Can I close the window?
Oh, sure.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. There we go. So what are we fearing? So take a second and think about, is there something that you're worried about as you get older? And again, you don't have to be over 60 or 70 to answer that question. Ageism is strong in this country, and every person who self-defines as older, whatever that is, we were just talking about that chronological age tells us nothing. When people say to me, "Oh, you don't look 69," I say, "Well, this is what 69 looks like," because I do. So don't think you're complimenting me by saying, "Oh, you don't look 69. There's nothing wrong with being 69, doggone it. So we have to teach people who react to this, they think they're complimenting you by telling you you don't look older. That's ageism. When people don't announce at their birthday, "I'm 69, woohoo!" and they go, "Oh, you look 39. No, that's ageism. Let's not reinforce that. But all of us have our own view of aging, and we have different levels of fear. So what I'd like to do, I have my little pen and paper here. Who would like to shout out something that you are fearful about aging? Yes?
The concern I have is all of the frauds and scams against seniors, our elder statespeople, and our veterans. I'm okay now, but what happens as I start to age? And right now I have a sphere of influence, but as people start to elevate to the next realm, you may find yourself by yourself.
Okay, that's a really good, thank you. Very, very important. Yes?
Losing my mobility.
Losing your mobility. Okay.
Loss of vision.
Loss of vision, ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. Not to be able to see colors would be really sad for me. Yes?
Lost memory.
Oh, that Alzheimer's disease. Ooh, such a horrible thing. I worked at the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center for over 20 some years. So, and I actually started in gerontology with looking at Alzheimer's. I really wish we could be put out of business. I wish we could find the cure. But the truth is, we now are able to do more protective factors against Alzheimer's than we ever have. So we do have a little bit of control over that. Not totally, but we have some. What else?
Losing independence, being able to be independent.
Oh, independent. I've got a whole slide on that. Only in the United States do we think we need to be independent. Communal cultures don't even look at that word. There's nothing, they don't see interdependence as a negative. So we'll talk about that.
Having enough money, finances to live the way you want to live, or have the help you need, or whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah, my friends and I are trying to figure out what we're gonna do, how we're all gonna live together. We'll probably get arrested often, but that's okay. One of my bucket lists is to get arrested. I thought before I was 65, now I'm going for 75. I'm a social activist. Social workers are real social activists, so I'll get out there eventually. They'll come get me. I told the younger social workers, I'll stand in front of the line, they can get me first. It's okay. What else?
Discrimination in the workforce.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be happening, right? Yeah, what discrimination? There's a law against that. Sure. That's a really good one. They're all very good. One more? Oh, yes.
Being sorry that you have to have a worker working for you to help you.
So feeling bad that you have to depend on somebody. Ugh, I hate the fact that our country has made us think that way. Yes, was there one more? Oh, yes.
Not being able to drive anymore,
Aha.
cross country.
Oh, yeah, there's great trains these days.
They're not that, yeah.
So these are great. I think some of these we'll be talking about in the presentation, but you can see that we have fears, and some of these fears are based on the values in the United States. And some of these fears are very valid, they're very real, but what I'm going to try and say is that we have some way of decreasing these fears. Okay, not all of them and not totally, but we do have some things that we can do. So I will be going back to that. Oh, I meant to say, I don't think I officially said thank you to Thrive and to Brookdale for letting me be here. So I'd like to do that. Okay, so many of the things that you mentioned fall in one of these categories, right? Physical changes, psychological changes, social changes, the environment, and financial, right? So let's break this down. Yes, it is true that our bodies change with age. Almost all our organs do. Though there are actually some parts of our memory that don't change at all, because memory is very, very complex. And yes, chronic illnesses and dementia and things like Alzheimer's disease do increase with age. That is a fact. But there is a great diversity in how we all age. Not everybody gets Alzheimer's disease. And in fact, at 85, 50% of people get Alzheimer's. That's really high, but 50% do not. So it doesn't mean because you're older, you're gonna lose your memory. Now, do I have word finding problems? Absolutely. Nothing more humiliating than standing in front of a group of 30-year-olds and thinking, I'm trying to say elbow. Come on, word, elbow, elbow. And it's not coming to me, right? But I use it as a teaching moment because I teach gerontology. But yeah, our memories change with age. There's no doubt about it. But most people, as they're older, can make very sound decisions, right? And the worst thing you can do when you get older is get anxious about your memory because it makes you forget more. So you just gotta roll with it. I mean, it takes 5 of my high school friends, it takes 5 of us to put a full story together. Because nobody can remember the whole story, but when we get together, we fill in the pieces, and that's okay. That is absolutely okay. Lifestyle is huge in our aging. All those things they told us when they were, I always hate to say this, because I need to lose weight. Not because of the way I look, but because my heart would really appreciate it if I took off some weight. My legs, my knees, right? It's absolutely true that if we are healthier physically, we're going to age better. Those studies that show using your brain. My PhD is a real protective factor against Alzheimer's disease. Anybody in this room who has a bachelor's degree has already a protective factor against Alzheimer's disease. We know that the more education you have, the more protective factors you have against Alzheimer's. We build more neuronal pathways, but you don't need a degree to do that. You can do that every day by learning something new. And the more out of your comfort level it is, the better it is for your brain. So you can do things to help your brain stay healthy or healthier. So lifestyle is important, and we'll talk about not only lifestyle of our bodies and what we do, but the people we hang around with, and the fact that we need to interact with other people. I would be really remiss if I didn't talk about determinants of health. This is really, really important. There are social determinants of health that there is a great disparity on in this country. Not all people are able in their young years to have the same access to housing, to education, to health care. And that's going to impact their aging. And then as they get older, there's a cumulative effect. So when we're looking at aging, we have to look at the systems in this country that prevent some people from being able to age at their best. And that should not be okay in my book. Okay? So all of us should have the same opportunity to have a good aging process. But we don't all have access to the same resources. Now, the good news is, when I started in gerontology, we had no idea how much control we have over our own aging. And we have a lot of control over our aging. Our genetics play a very small part. You know, we tend to say, oh, how long did your parents live? Well, that's probably not as important as your lifestyle, your attitude, and what you're doing about your own aging, okay? If you want to age fearlessly, you're going to have to believe that you can be the person you want to be at any age. And that's really important. So we have a lot of control physically over how we do. Psychologically, there are definitely people who have had trauma in their life. There's now some feeling that most people have had trauma in their life. We've all had serious losses. We have all had things that have erupted in our lives. Some people have had more trauma than others. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And that impacts our life story. So if you go through your life telling the story of how you failed and not looking at the systems that maybe played into that failure or the lack of support you had, that's going to impact how you age. And that's psychological. Resiliency. Do you still have the strengths? Do you still see your own strengths now? Everybody in this room has immense strengths. You have a resiliency. You can pick yourselves back up. Anyone over the age of 70 or 75 has proven they're a survivor. Do you remember that? Do you hang on to that? Do you embrace that? Because that's part of aging fearlessly. How do you see the world? I always hate to ask this because I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I've had some people who I know who I call worriers. They worry all the time. They worry about the snow. Oh my God, they predicted 2 inches of snow. Or better yet, they predicted 1 inch of snow. My gosh, you live in Chicago. 1 inch of snow is nothing. But the everything, right? Oh this, oh that. And I'm like, we know that that kind of worrying is not good for your aging process. You gotta let it go, folks. I mean, there are things we need to be concerned about, but that if you haven't learned by 75 that you gotta roll with the punches, that could be a problem. You might want to see a counselor. And there's nothing wrong with seeing counselors. I am a social worker, remember. There are many losses with aging, and we need to grieve those losses. And I don't want to discount losing spouses or partners of many, many years, of losing mobility, of losing vision. But most people adjust. They learn to function with those losses. If you find you're stuck and you can't move forward after a period of time, you probably are depressed. And that's part of mental health. And that's part of what Thrive is all about, right? Is that you need to see people. There's nothing wrong. Older adults are incredibly responsive to counseling. They do really, really well with counseling. And there's nothing wrong with seeing someone 4, 5 times and figuring things out and then enjoying life again. That doesn't mean you don't always carry that loss with you, but you can enjoy life even after loss. I don't want to dismiss suicide rates, which are really high among white older men. So to all the white guys in the room, you need to make sure that you have purpose and roles and ways of living in this world, because you're not used to ageism and you're not used to not having this presence when you walk into a room or whatever it is that increases the risk for older white men. But there is a real risk of older white men with suicide. So we want to pay attention to that. That's not aging fearlessly, right? So we want to make sure we take care of all the older white men and make sure that there's not suicide risk. Also, someone talked about independence. I'm going to challenge the fact that we have ever in our lives ever really been independent. We haven't. When you were kids, you depended on your parents or whoever your guardians were. If you were ever in a relationship with anyone, hopefully it was a mutual back and forth. Why we think in the later years we need to be independent is a mystery to me. We are not meant to be independent creatures. That's not what social human beings are. By nature, we're interdependent. So needing to have someone help you with a few things is not a weakness. It's not something wrong. It's just being human. And we all need someone to support us at some time, and we also hopefully support other people some of the time. That's what being human's about. So please watch that word independent. You can say, I want to function well. That's okay. But I really challenge the word independent. It's this thing about John Wayne in the West and being independent. I don't know what that all is. But we are not independent creatures. We are always interdependent. So I would ask you to think about that when you're thinking about aging. Because I think part of the fear of aging is that you won't be independent. But I really would ask you to think about whether you ever have been truly always independent. Okay? Now you can argue with me on this one. I would love to hear your thoughts on it in a little bit. What about socially? You've lost loved ones perhaps if you're older. Someone may be ill. Someone you love may be ill. And that can impact your social support network. Caregivers are often isolated. Social isolation among older adults is a major problem. We have too many people living in homes by themselves and not getting out for months. That is not good for human beings. Again, we're social creatures. So in a place like this, you've got people all around you. If you're not talking to them though, then you're still socially isolated perhaps. But interacting with other human beings is really, really, really important. I can't understate that fact. And things have changed. You have friends who have moved away, or who have become ill, or who have died. So how do you form new friendships in your later years? It can definitely be done. And what about those, if you have a family, you know, dang it, those older kids, those children just move away on you. The days when everybody lived within a few blocks from each other, we know rarely happens today. So how are you going to find, who's your new family? How are you going to create a family? When someone comes in and tells me something about their parent or a sibling, I say, well, let me ask you first, do you like them? Because, you know, not everybody likes their family, and there's often good reasons why. So you have to decide who your family's gonna be, right? So we wanna reach out to others and not feel like we're being a burden because we're asking someone if they wanna chat, or go to a movie, or join a book club, or stop in. We have this feeling like, well, they should know I'm sitting here all alone. People are not good mind readers. So socially, we need to be reaching out to people. Exchange phone numbers before you leave this meeting today. You see someone who looks interesting, say, hey, you look interesting, can I have your phone number? You laugh, you'd be surprised how many people meet like that. And what about our environment? So how much of our not being able to function is due to our homes and the stairs, and the fact that we live in Chicago and you can't go out easily in the winter without a fear of snow and ice. I know that Oak Park is working on being an aging-friendly community, and I think River Forest is as well. What does that mean? That means that you live near places like grocery stores, and you have curbs, and if you can't drive, you can still get around. You don't need to drive. I live in Forest Park, but I live right by the L, and I'm only 2 blocks from a grocery store, and I could take the Harlem bus if I needed to. You want to find a place, if any of you are still living in your own homes in the community, where you move next, make sure it's aging friendly. My townhouse has a lot of steps, so I know that at some points I'm going to have to leave there. It's okay for now, the knees are holding out. But you want to make sure that you're moving into aging-friendly communities. And centers like this, living communities like this, are totally based on aging-friendly. So that's a good thing. But not everybody can afford a Brookdale, let's be honest, right? So we need aging-friendly communities that everybody can afford. And so we have to continue to develop those. And then last, what about those finances? Well, you know, there's nothing wrong with living in a studio. There's nothing wrong with renting an apartment. We like our stuff, and we like big places, but we may not all need to have those. And you can set aside money for retirement, but gosh knows right now we're all seeing those retirement funds go whoosh. Is that fearful? I won't use fearful. Is it unsettling? Oh yeah. I'm already figuring out, all right, if that much money goes, what's my next option here? Find those 3 or 4 people I want to live with when I get older, and that'll cut costs if we each have our own bedroom. What if you lost all your savings because someone you loved needed all the money for medical expenses? What if you needed it for your own illness? Can we live with limited money? There are people in this country who've been living on limited money for a lot longer than we'll ever know. Can you be happy? Sure you can. Is it a change? Yeah. So let's think about the words we want to use with lack of money. And if you have people who are still asking you for money, it's time to practice the word no. So say after me, but can't you loan me $1,000? No. But only $500? No. How about gas money? No. Right? So you just keep practicing that, and maybe you'll do a little better financially. All right? All right, so those are the challenges that come with aging. Okay, I gotta watch my time. All right, so what do we do about it? How do we age fearlessly knowing all this? Well, you have the ability to decide how you're gonna respond to the fears or the changes of aging, right? So, ageism, we're gonna look at ageism, the need to be in control, accepting challenges and taking risks. So, ageism, again, The fact that we automatically assume something about someone because of the age they told us or the way they look. And that's called ageism. So has anyone here ever walked into a store or been somewhere and felt invisible? This is a very common thing that older people say, that it's like they're not even in the room, right? That does not feel good. What about having people assume that you have a memory problem, or that you can't hear them, or that the children, if you have any, or the people younger than you, they must know what's best for you? I don't know why when we reach a certain age, children assume that they have to become our parents. It's not going to work. We're not going to let them. And so that's ageism, this assumption that somehow we're not able to anymore. What about looking at gray hair, seeing wrinkles, having a different body that doesn't fit this youth image? At what point, they're saying now, a lot of women are saying gray hair is okay. It can be as beautiful. Why do we if we took all the money that is going into anti-aging creams and put it into research for Alzheimer's, do you know how much better we'd be? Like, who decided that wrinkles were bad? It came from somewhere, probably those companies making anti-aging creams. So, think about it. You are beautiful at any age. Maybe you're not the classic 30-year-old look. I never had the classic 30-year-old look, so it was easy for me to age. But I imagine for some of these stars that looked gorgeous, and now they don't look quite like a 30-year-old, or whatever the magic age is. It's very difficult to feel okay, but let's not let our corporations and the companies market against who we are. If we could find a profit out of aging naturally, we would be in right away. There's just no profit in aging naturally that I can find. So let's not embrace who you are due to how others see you, but how you see yourself. And older people are still sexual beings filled with zest. There is nothing wrong with being attracted to people of whatever gender or sex you've always been attracted to. And if the kids can't take it, then tell the kids to grow up. Right? My daughter is always like, "Oh, Mom." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm not dead. It's a good-looking dude." So we should be able to do that and feel okay about your age, whatever it is, and say it with pride. So we're going to do what we can to fight ageism in society. Every over-the-hill card should be eliminated from every store that sells them. It's the only ism they allow to exist. There is no reason we should have over-the-hill balloons and cards. It's ageism. Why do we allow that? We should all get out there with our little, maybe we'll get arrested on that one. No, get rid of the over-the-hill stuff. So we need to embrace who you are. Some people are what we might call control freaks. I'm sure none of you would be that. This is the person who has to have a plan for everything, wants to know that things are all in order. Anybody figured out that doesn't work? Life just happens, doesn't it? So if you feel that you need to be in control of those around you, you know that doesn't work. To control your body, to control what happens, to control how your family responds to you or what they tell you to do. So how do you let go of that? How do you get more flexible? How do you feel comfortable with, hey, I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to go with the flow. And most older adults are actually not fearful of dying. They're fearful of how they may die and how little control they may have over their death. Well, there are all kinds of forms today that you can fill out. If you don't have a durable power of attorney of healthcare, a durable power of attorney finances, 5 wishes, there are all kinds of things you can fill out to make sure that your death looks the way you want it to, and then you can let it go. Tell everybody in your family, you get this, you get that, you don't get anything, and then let it go, right? Control what you can and let the other stuff go. So you can work to be healthy, to keep your mind sharp, and to have friends, but be ready to adapt when things still go wrong. Or a lot of people have talked about the willow. Notice that the stiffest tree is most easily cracked, while the bamboo or willow survives by bending in the wind. So we gotta go with the flow, right? We can't be rigid. It won't work for us with aging. I also don't want to talk about caregiving, because this is a hard one with control. If you're caring for someone who has memory problems, who is ill, I can tell you that you do need a certain level of taking care of things, but you need a balance. All the literature shows you cannot take care of someone alone. You have to have a support network. And so you need to be able to ask others for help. There's a whole book called The 36-Hour Day, and it talks about how we cannot do this by ourselves. So you cannot control the progression of the diseases that our loved ones may have, but you can control how you respond to them and allow others to care and focus on your own needs as well. That you can do some control over. How do we accept changes? There are many changes over a lifetime. You've all had them, right? You've already adapted to all kinds of things. So think of the changes you've already faced, and how did you get through them? What did you learn from them? And if you fear change more today in 2023 than you did 15 years ago, why? What's happened? You're still the same person. So why are you fearing things more than you used to? And if you can unravel that, then maybe you can age fearlessly, okay? Because you haven't really changed, but something about the way you're looking at things may have changed. So while we need to be aware of things in the future, you know, this thing I call Zen, being in right now, really, really being here today with all of us. Look at all you wonderful human beings. It's amazing, right? Are we really taking each other in? Are we really enjoying each other? That we can adapt to. That we can have some presence over. So I really ask you to do a little less. We'll go with what we've got now and not so much the future. And what about taking risks? You know, one of the Bushes, I think I call him Daddy Bush, wasn't he jumping out of planes at like 90? That was a risk taker, right? I'm not saying you have to jump out of a plane, but are you doing something that really makes you say, woo, look what I just did? Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be big, it could be little. So can you form a new relationship? Can you go up to somebody you haven't said hello to and say hello? Can you start a class if you like classes? Can you travel? It could be on Amtrak. It could be on the bus. When was the last time you were on a Greyhound bus? Woo! You know, let's get out there and take some risks. What about learning more about your community? Do you know what's going on in this town? Do you know what the youth in your community need? Are you giving to other people? Could you take a risk by being vulnerable and reaching out? Could you do that? And when was the last time, so is this the time you contribute to making this a better world? You know, the people who are fighting climate change really, really need elders. They need the voices, they need the understanding, they need the intelligence. We need to be out there helping young people save this planet, right? That's taking a risk. That's joining an organization. That's saying, I'm going to do something in my later years that are going to matter. That is a great way to age fearlessly. So what would aging with limited fear, because I won't say you can get rid of all your fear, but if you had less fear, what would it look like for you? So what is fear preventing you from doing or being? What is it stopping you from going out and trying? okay? What would it look like if you didn't fear what will happen in the next 5 years? Or better yet, if you stopped and imagined yourself in a place where you were laughing and feeling at peace, how do you get there? How do you get to where you want to be? Because it can happen. You can do it. But you got to believe, right? You got to believe that you can be that person. So here's my challenge to all of you, even if you're not an elder. Does the world need elders to advocate for change? Hell yeah. We should be a voice on every place in this planet. There are grandmothers who are fighting against all kinds of things. We can change the way things are. And who better than the wisdom of elders to be out there? If you were focused on your community, where would you go? What concerns you? What can you do to make a difference? Do others see you as a person of support and caring? Do they see you as someone who's anxious or worried or fearful? Or do they see you as someone who is like a role model? They go, man, I want to be, when I saw Dolores Huerta, I said, that's what I want to be like at 92. I want to be like her. So what do I have to do now to get like her, right? Do you have something you look forward to every day? And if you don't, why not? And it can't be the 3 glasses of wine every evening. We now know that you can't drink as much as we used to think you could drink when you got older. Sorry, folks. I still have not read much about all the drugs, the marijuana. I mean, I'm a kid of the 70s, right? We used to call it grass. My mom goes, my daughter says, Mom, they don't call it that anymore. You know, I don't know. Should we all be popping those little gummies? I don't know. Would that help us age fearlessly? I don't know. But you need something to look forward to. Do you fight against ageism? Say your age and say it loud. So I'm gonna say now on the count of 3, yell your age and yell it loud. 1, 2, 3. 69.
88.
Woo! Love it. Love it. All right.
100.
And if people around you don't bring you joy, get rid of them. They're out the door. Right? You need to surround yourself with people who bring you joy. So in summary, aging is a lifelong process. There are clearly things that happen as we get older. Losing some of our energy, losing our friends, losing some of the things that we like body-wise. It's awful. It stinks. But it is part of aging. And if you think back to the other developmental stages, I don't know about you, but I didn't like being a teenager a heck of a lot. It was not a fun time for me, right? And there are other things. If you worked, you know, there were bosses that were awful. There are times with children or people you took care of was not pleasant. So we've always had challenges over time with our development. You can get through it. You're a survivor. You've made it through those challenges. You are here. And now, how will you write the next chapter of your life? What do you want this chapter to look like? None of us knows how long our chapter is going to be, right? But what do you want your chapter to look like? And then go out and make it happen. Are you embracing yourself? Are you proud of the fact that you've made it to today? Because you need to be. You need to be, right? And if you wait for younger people to do that, forget it. They will get it. But you can embrace yourself. You can be proud of who you are. So what will you do to age fearlessly? What are you doing now to age fearlessly? But maybe all this presentation wasn't correct for you. Maybe it didn't fit. Maybe you didn't agree with it. So we're going to go into discussion and let me know what you think. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If you disagree, please let me know. I love interchange. I'm only knowing my story of aging and the people that I've met. You know your story, right? You know what works for you. So thank you for your time. I will tell